part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Worldwide. You're listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome to the Krypton Report, broadcasting straight from Arkham Asylum. I'm your host, Tyler Patrick, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow, and I think I'm stuck in a cell with a crazy person, the Superman of Red, the Man of Steel, James. Dude, it's like my kids just flipped a switch and went to nuts, so my house just went...
Right.
They were like, Dad's about to form a podcast. Everybody go nuts. Ah!
We'll see if you would have practiced it, or if you would have told me that was going to be your introduction today. I could have practiced my Joker laugh.
You mean Alora's Joker laugh as she was cracking it up before we started?
I know, right?
Jeez, kids. All right, let's get into some news, man.
We got a lot of it recently.
We got some interesting news. Mountain Dew. All right. First news that I found out today. Cleveland is having their own special Superman 85th anniversary celebration thing. And it's pretty sweet. It's like a 2-month thing in September and October. And I shared on our social media the information, and anyone who's close to the Cleveland, Ohio area, it's gonna be cool. Like Mark Wade's gonna be up here for multiple days. And Philip Kennedy Johnson's gonna be up here. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited. I made a PDF of all the events that I want to attend. And James and I are going to be out there one day. We just got to figure it out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Cleveland is only
it's like an hour and a half.
2.5.
I think it was like an hour and a half for you. Like I said,
it's been a very long time since I drove to Cleveland.
Because I checked, it's like almost 3 for me. Almost. And it was like an hour and something for you. Because I was like...
Yeah, Cleveland is definitely closer to me than you are.
So, but I'm like, that's cool. Brian might go. I don't know. He makes everything complicated. Because he plans stuff with his wife and then gets mad that he plans stuff with his wife. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that was... When was that?
The thing?
Yeah.
September and October?
Exactly. Yeah, September and October. So, I mean, that's a potential ways out. Like, that's something you could.
He always takes vacation in October to do stuff for visit stuff for Halloween and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh well, I mean, it's still far enough out that you could maybe see if you could work it in before or after or whatever. But I guess if you're already taking off some time, that'd be some extra time you'd have to take off at that point if that's kind of your regular thing.
Yep. So
can't be mad about that.
So that's something that's exciting for us to do. The next big piece of news is, nope, not going there yet. The Flash podcast, The Midnight Circus, dropped the first 2 episodes on Apple. And I really liked the first episode. I really thought it was cool. It was energetic. Max Greenfield as Barry Allen. It's very Ezra Miller style Barry Allen. And if they had wanted to replace Ezra Miller, I think, and keep the same kind of character, Max would have been a great choice. And I told Janine about it. I was like, I'm listening to this, and I'm like, they're doing Iris West kind of dirty. Because they're making her like a D-bag. Because like they're married and they're in marriage counseling in the first episode. And so I played it. I re-listened to the first episode. It was only like 19 minutes with Jania, and she's just like looking at me at certain parts like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, for real. Like they're doing her dirty. But
I don't have iTunes or anything or Apple, so I haven't had a chance to check it out.
Yeah, after like the first 4 episodes, it's going to all podcasts like Spotify and everything. And
Yeah, once it hits that, I can check it out.
I still haven't finished the Christina Ricci Harley Quinn one. I have like 2 episodes left. But I just, and then like the second episode is basically he tries to go back in time for 48 hours. And then when he comes back, he doesn't have his powers. And like the world fell apart, went to crap. And he's on this like, basically it's like the Running Man where they're people who are like owe money, who have broke like debtors, criminals, all compete in like a gladiator type match on TV against like supervillains. And I'm just like, wow, why does every Flash story have to be like, oh, I have to go back in time to fix this and I lost my powers? So I'm just kind of like, where's this going to go? I'm like, man, I was kind of pumped for it, but then they did this. And now I'm just like, I don't know. But in other news, we got the second Blue Beetle trailer.
Yes, we did.
What'd you think? We didn't really talk about it. I just basically texted and said, Iron Man plus Spider-Man Homecoming with a dash of Green Lantern, Blue Beetle.
Oh yeah.
That was basically, I was like, that's what it feels like, which could be a good thing. You know what I'm saying? That could be a good thing for, everybody.
I mean, yeah, there's some reminiscent moments of things that we have seen, but I mean, that's kind of what you get when you get some similarities in characters and their abilities. The good thing is Jaime being an interesting character, and if that characterization is brought through with the movie, the script, and the actor. But yeah. I really enjoyed the trailer. I am getting hyped for Blue Beetle. I don't know the villain's name.
I don't either.
I was going to look it up again.
You definitely see Jaime make more stuff, like in the trailer.
Yeah, and some reminiscent stuff, like the long, wide blasters and stuff from his hands. It kind of gives away. Like it seems like he's like his first time out with the suit, and it doing its thing is kind of what causes some of those accidents and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's interesting, like, of course there's going to be some problems, and that's actually part of the characterization of Blue Beetle, because the Scarab is a sentient computer, a sentient AI.
Yep.
That speaks directly to Jaime through his central nervous system.
And we will be doing a Blue Beetle, I want to say a deep dive, but we'll cover some Blue Beetle stuff next month, preparing for the film. And what's crazy though is like the day the film comes out, like the first release is on, it always comes out like a day early. Solomon has he has a dentist appointment and a doctor's appointment. And then that night we have open house for school because they start school like the week after.
Oh man.
So it's just like crap. So we're going to have to actually go on Friday instead of doing Thursday preview night. So I'm like, all right, cool.
I am absolutely seeing it opening weekend. Unsure of exactly when, but as soon as possible.
I like how this scene, like the opening scene of the trailer, is him jumping to like get the Blue Beetle come out. Reminds me a little bit of Shazam. I like the LexCorp building next to the Cord Industries building.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool thing to see the skyline. Those buildings like that. The jumping, very reminiscent to like Shazam and stuff. But I do like that it's I think it's a different a different build up, a different reason. You know what I mean? Like for Shazam, it was that he had like that confidence to go help his family. and that's why he did it. And then in this one, it's like he can't control it, but he knows if he were to, like, say, throw himself off the top of the building, the scarab would protect its host. And it would cause the suit to come out.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's definitely a different play on it, on a similar scene.
So I'm excited. It just looks fun. You know, I'm curious how like it's gonna work. Like the family dynamic will be interesting.
Yeah.
What exactly the bad guy's plan is?
Right. Well, because we got Susan Sarandon as Ted Kord's sister, I believe, is who she is.
Yeah.
And she's a villain, but we get to see like one extra scene of her, maybe an extended scene, but it's the same stuff we've seen from the earlier trailers and the earlier spots.
Are we gonna get Ted Kord, or is it gonna be like this mystery of like what happened to Ted Kord? You know, like.
Yeah. Well, there's been different iterations in some different mediums that I had seen where Ted Kord has died. So Jaime never really had a mentor for the Blue Beetle. He's like the third generation, but he doesn't know any of the previous. And then there is where like he's disappeared and he eventually finds him, so he does kind of get closer to that mentor position. She's excited.
Can we just talk about the one shot of Nana holding the gun? He's like, Nana? She's like, my house is a nutcase. But,
yeah, that was a campy. It was a bit of campy fun, I think. But and that's what I hope it is. I mean, I saw her kind of firing it and everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hope she doesn't come out like Arnold in T2 with the spinning gun and just start wailing on people, you know?
I mean, we see her in the one shot with it. Like
seems like it, right?
So I don't know. I'm curious, but I'm in. Blue Beetle looks fun and awesome, and
you know what? It looks really funny, but it doesn't look funny as in like everything is all quips. Everything's all pop culture references, and they didn't, at least in the trailers, they didn't steer towards any sort of like inappropriate adult humor that we've gotten from a lot of these recent films.
Yeah. You know, it's like I had a student tell me, she was like, it looks like millennials humor trying to write for this generation type stuff. And I was like, and she was talking about like Flash and Shazam. And I was like, interesting. I was like, all right. And so this does not look like that. So we will see. But let's keep it moving on. We have some casting news for Superman Legacy. And
Alara's going to bed. Say goodnight, Tyler.
Huh? Alora. Good night, Alora. You're the best. I don't know how, I feel about all this, and we'll break it down. But we got casting for Superman Legacy, and what we got was, and this is today and yesterday, so I'm combining 2 days worth of news. Anthony Carrigan, who played on Flash, Gotham, and Barry. He was Zaz on Gotham, has been cast as Metamorpho. Eddie Gaffigy, I'm going to try, who played Darwin from X-Men First Class, is Mr. Terrific. Isabella Merced, she was in the Dora the Explorer movie and Transformers 5, The Last Night, as well as she's done some other projects, but that's just what I know her from.
I haven't seen either one of those.
Hawk Girl. We don't know what version of Hawk Girl, but she is Hawk Girl. And then the biggest one is Nathan Fillion has been cast as Green Lantern, Guy Gardner.
Yeah, he's been a fan cast as Hal for, since before Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern came out in 2011. He's been a fan cast for Green Lantern for, near 20 years.
I mean, that's why he came up so much as, the Green Lantern of, what do you call it? The animated films. Like, the only one that didn't feature him, basically, was when they did First Flight, and then when they did Justice League War. Because after Justice League War, they replaced the actor with Nathan Fillion.
Mm-hmm.
And he had done it for what? Justice League Doom, I think, before that?
Yes, and he also did Hal in the animated series. In the one episode, Hal is there for about 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah. Hal Jordan, I'm up to speed. I think that was his line.
Mm-hmm. My ring gave me, yeah, that whole thing.
But Guy Gardner, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I could see him doing Guy Gardner, especially being a little bit older now. I think, he has a little bit more of that Guy Gardner-ness, and you can play it to where Guy is an older Green Lantern. And that way, if you want to do what the Lantern thing that they want to do and have Jon Stewart or, be the Lantern, however they want to do it, sure.
Right. The only thing that I would think, if you're going to make Guy that maybe Hal is not really on the table. I think that they're probably going to go more of the Jon Stewart route, and maybe Hal is like the Green Lantern of legend, the greatest Lantern to have lived.
Yeah, maybe.
And Guy Gardner is living up to that, or trying to be who he is. I mean, Guy is Guy,
Mm-hmm.
I think Jon Stewart would be the focus after that.
People lost their mind, pissed off, because that guy who was cast, Finn Witwick, who was cast to be Guy Gardner for the Green Lantern show, they're like, did they fire this guy to bring over Nathan Fillion? And I'm like, you guys don't realize that show's been dead, since Gunn took over. Because that was from the J.J. Abrams era that never happened.
Yeah.
The Green Lantern show that just lingered in turmoil hell forever. That's been kind of over, So, and what I find interesting is going back to thinking about the live action and animation they've talked about. So, Nathan Fillion will be the voice of Guy Gardner now, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm just happy to see him as a Green Lantern. He's a great actor, and he certainly has that. He certainly has that smugness to him that I think he could pull off either Guy or Hal.
Yeah,
I think as a younger person, maybe Hal would have been better, but maybe now, Guy might be better.
That's what I feel like.
He has a show and stuff. He probably doesn't want that kind of commitment. So playing one of the more the less seen Lanterns would be better.
Issue here is just the fact that it's Superman Legacy, and I'm like, okay, are we no longer allowed to make standalone superhero movies? I know you're rebooting a universe, and maybe if it's one scene or something, with these other heroes there, and they're there for something else, but I don't know what would be down the line from what he's announced, unless it's a film that we don't know about. But I don't know. I want I don't want anything to take away from Superman and Lois and the story. So I'm just kind of like, okay, is this going to be over bloated? Someone posted today, I had to laugh. I was like, oh, James Gunn in here making a better Black Adam movie. And I was like, oh my God. And then I think Zach Moore had my favorite post because he had the scene from Jurassic Park as a GIF, but he said, hello? Will there be any Superman characters in your Superman movie? Hello? and that's when I was like, dude, I'm like, come on, give us like Jimmy Olsen, Perry, the Daily Planet staff, Ma and Pa, characters like that fill out the Superman world. I don't care about. This is cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's not what I'm expecting until next week. Watch next week. The Flash drops on digital. The next day, they announced that someone's playing Wally West in Superman Legacy.
Right.
Because they're just going to reboot the Flash with Wally West and just kind of skip over Barry Allen, kind of like with the Hal Jordan thing here.
Yeah, maybe. Right. I guess that's definitely possible. That's kind of the way they went in the animated movies, really. The way the Tomorrowverse has kind of been. But the idea, I'm hoping, because it's kind of like the same complaint that people had for not necessarily Black Adam, because it was the Justice Society. It was kind of the team against Black Adam, kind of how it's been in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was really brought up in that, but definitely with the Flash, about all of the characters. Is it going to be a Flash movie? And it absolutely was.
Yeah.
But I just hope that in the effort of having these characters cast and introducing it, there is a reason for them to be there and to be able to make an appearance in something else soon. Yeah. Something else down the line, because we only got maybe half the slate, 2/3 of the slate maybe that he announced back in at the end of January.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm curious as what else we will have. So that is everything we have for now. It's time to jump into some comics. James, which one do you want to do first?
Let me see here. Which one's the oldest here?
Action.
Probably Action. Yeah, let me go ahead. We start with Action.
1056.
Or do you want to save Superman for last and do Steelworks first, and then John Kent, and then Superman Action last?
We'll do Action, Steelworks, John Kent.
Okay. Because John Kent has been a quality book. But so has Action. So we open up on Action, and they are fighting Cyborg Superman. Interesting, though, because he says, I feel like I should thank you, Superman. Your power boost from War World's White Sun, the technology of Mongols' unmade warriors, and none of your childish restraint. Thanks to you, for the first time in my life, there's nothing I can't do. That's pretty great. That's pretty cool, just because his body was, made from Superman's DNA since he returned from Warworld.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of cloned from it. And yeah, he has that power boost, which we saw in that scene where Lex tried to get rid of him. And he just came back from across the galaxy.
I think it'd be interesting if Cyborg Superman here looked different. He had a different costume. Then Superman got a different Superman costume than just the exact same one. Would be kind of neat, kind of like how in the death of Superman, they did a darker New 52 style for the Reign of the Superman and everything.
Right. The what would make sense these days is if Cyborg Superman maybe went without trunks.
Yeah.
Since they decided to bring the trunks back for Superman.
Yeah, he had more of like the rebirth, reborn era looking suit, or just like a different configuration. Like even like when he had like a red and black suit. So
Right. But Cyborg Superman, the gist of it here is Cyborg Superman is he's everywhere. He's everything around them. He's everything mechanical and malleable from the War World technology.
he says it's a nexus.
Yeah, this body is only a nexus for my consciousness because he's still in the Phantom Zone. He's controlling all of these things, all of these creations from the Phantom Zone.
Which is crazy.
It's nuts. He's actually really powerful. So and that's just him from the Phantom Zone. Wait if they've got plans for him to actually escape the Phantom Zone. That might be something if Philip Kennedy Johnson is looking at that somewhere down the line. That'd be cool. But like he's all of his materials are attacking. So the team is split into the super family is split into groups. People who went after Cyborg, Superman, and Tracy, and then the others who are out fighting off the Unmade in Metropolis. Supergirl and John and Natasha, and I believe Keenan is out there, and the children and Steel and Connor are all fighting against Cyborg Superman. It's really cool. It's a really big fight. They're fighting. Tracy is being used as a weapon, which kind of gets Corbin to kind of get in the middle of it. At least he lays he lays Steel with a big old hit for putting Tracy down.
Mm-hmm.
But then Cyborg Superman, but then Metallo goes after Cyborg Superman. And I think Metallo Metallo's used to being a machine. I think he's been a machine longer than Cyborg Superman. But he rips Cyborg Superman's body apart. They are both unmade, so I guess it makes sense. He's got some of the same strength and abilities.
Makes sense.
Right. And then in A-Town Metropolis, all of the unmade go down. They say Cal's team did it, and Natasha and Keenan hear a heartbeat. One of the unmade is actually still alive. He has a heartbeat. So Keenan snatches him up and takes him to a hospital. Takes him somewhere so he can hopefully get his life saved.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk, they talk to Tracy. We get a City of Tomorrow article from Clark Kent.
Of course we do.
Yep. It's very good. This book's a really good read. Back at Steelworks Towers, Metallo, Corbin is with his sister Tracy. She's like him. She can't feel anymore.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, she can't feel. She feels weird being wrapped up in this like fake skin. She's almost trying to take it out or take it off. And she says, this is really sweet. She says, I'm just a monster now, Johnny, like you. Says, listen, Trace, whatever's in me has been there since we were kids. It wasn't the kryptonite or the metal parts. It got me a long time ago. You're not like me. You're more like Superman or those two kids. One of the good guys. And this monster ain't going anywhere. Then we got them watching Superman watching over them, kind of listening to them. He says, I can't thank you two enough for keeping Metallo here. I know you didn't design Steelworks for this kind of thing. And it's just leave it to Superman to look out for Metallo, especially after everything he tried to do to you. And don't say anyone else would do the same, because you know that's not true. It says Tracy Corbin needs her brother, and John Corbin's going to surprise us someday. I love the eternal optimism.
Of course.
The way this, yeah. There's a, it's a heavy book to write for this Action Comics the way we've got it, because this Action Comics has so many characters in it. It's balancing the super family, and Superman in this book has to stand up and be the greatest.
Yeah, he does.
And everyone follows suit, and I love that. So we have Blue Earth arguing, they're losing, Superman's winning. Do you know who this is?
Nope.
Okay. I didn't either. So she does say that they should be terrified. Everybody should be terrified. Super family, because they're terrified of what might happen if they don't. This time tomorrow, Superman will be a mass murderer, and it'll be our family who saves the day. Yep. So I have to see what Night Terror Superman is going to bring. If these nightmares are going to impact the world and the way that people are going to see what the heroes at least did or something when they were, I don't know, under the influence of the nightmares, maybe.
Yeah.
But we won't get back to the regular books until September.
Yep, I know. It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's kind of how the last few decades have gone. It's kind of event after event. Like, you need things to really branch out and bring these groups together. Everybody's so powerful. There needs to be big threats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
So we get the next chapter of, what is the name of this one?
Several years ago, the one with part 6 of the throwback to Superman or Lois.
Home Again, part 6. That's what it was. I was looking for that page and I only had to flip one. John is now on planet Plune, and he is a prisoner of the princess, well, now queen, and Superman is flying across the galaxy to get there, and she brings him directly there. She threatens John's life if Superman doesn't quell her rebellion. He says he won't hurt them, he won't hurt people for her. She says it's not necessarily... She says, I'm not asking you to kill them. All you have to do is move them to another galaxy or shrink them and put them in a bottle. She just wants him to get rid of them no matter what. I love that he kind of takes off, and he's putting on a show for her, trying to listen for John, and trying to understand what the people are going through and why they are rebelling against her. We know that she killed her family and took over and does not have her people's best interests at heart, is pretty much what it seems like.
Yeah.
Doombreaker is stuck in a stasis beam, we see, because he's still in this story.
Of course he is.
Yeah. Well, this story, it's between this and the 30th anniversary, and then the Lois and Clark book from The Road to Rebirth, it kind of builds up this world, this other timeline, just expands the time.
Yeah.
Because the Lois and Clark was only 6 issues. And this is a Superman This is a Superman that was doing things at that time when you didn't see this Superman doing anything. But he was there. So there's a lot of story that could be told in the background that we never got to see. But John decides to try to do something, make a lot of noise through the ground, something that would sound recognizable as something human or something being made, not just like earth sound or planetary sounds. As he's trying to get his attention, she cuts the oxygen to the room and causes John to pass out. And next issue, Secret Weapon.
Yep.
Then we start Steelworks, and this story still takes place before Steelworks number 1. Steel Engineer of Tomorrow, Part 3. And this is where he is face-to-face with Mr. Terrific. They are talking about taking business from the elite without consequences. So this is kind of what we're seeing in the Steelworks book. Steel messing with people's business, and they certainly can't have somebody cutting into their profit margins.
Yep.
That kind of sounds like corporate America, doesn't it?
You don't say.
I do like here where they where Mr. Terrific says that that John Henry Irons himself is untested. Steel may be a hero, but John Henry Irons is untested. So he unsuits and they wail on each other a little bit.
That's fun.
Yeah. Hey, so they have a good conversation just about the whole kind of corporate thing, what he's doing. His public image as John Henry Irons. Of course, he's talking about Lana. Him and Lana are engaged to be married, and at this point, with everything going on, he definitely seems distracted from the wedding. He takes him to a hall of hammers.
I thought that was hilarious.
Right. He's got a lot of hammers in here. Lots of different shapes, lots of different sizes. It's kind of like an Iron Man suits of hammers, right? They all do something different.
Mm-hmm.
He's still trying to right the wrongs that created steel in the first place. His technology and stuff being used for weapons. We have Amalgam. He breaks into Steelworks. Natasha is low on power, but she fights him, and she says the suit's down, but she's okay. But John comes in with a big hammer, and he's wailing on Amalgam, and he actually says, "Please stop." And Nat screams, "Uncle John!" and Mr. Terrific jumps in, "Show them who you are, John." So kind of like, don't let an outburst like that ruin things.
Yep.
John Henry Irons has stopped the assailant known as Amalgam. And they say, "But who sent Amalgam? I know damn well who sent them. Now you're thinking, John, and this is just the beginning."
Dun, dun,
So,
dun.
I'm thinking, since we've read Steelworks number 1 and now Steelworks number 2, we know who sent Amalgam.
Yeah. It's so weird that we're like kind of behind. Like this is the prequel to Steelworks, and we're getting here now.
Right? It kind of seems like that's done, but I don't know.
Yeah. So the steel's wrapped up, so we'll see what we get as the backup, next time.
Right.
So Connor's got his own book. But all right, so we did that one. Now we'll jump to, I got to pull this out here. Crap. I had to do this one digital, so.
Which one's that?
Oh, the next comics are all digital.
Oh, Steelworks number 2?
Yeah. So, all right, you want to take that one?
Sure. We open at Steelworks Tower, where the system is going haywire. The guy we met, whose life was ruined after John kind of got Ameritech shut down, he is invincible. He's running through everything, causing the systems to go haywire, and they have their security system to contend with, which, needless to say, is pretty darn good. Nat saw the man running through, kind of blurry, kind of hazy, kind of smoky, but she saw it. They find him in the security footage, and we go back to him, Walker Inc. the following morning. It's Mr. Walker, we'll see you now. So suppose you had fun last night. Mr. Carey is not happy because this was done to him against his will. These abilities he was given, so his abilities are explained here as motion, momentum, kind of like triggers his powers. So basically, when he's moving, he's kind of just invisible. At least with when it comes to speed.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be moving kind of fast. So like running, he'll run right out of his clothes because he'll turn invisible. Throwing a punch, he can't hit anything.
He's
because
very
he's
non-corporeal.
Yeah, he describes him actually as a mist. He's nothing but a ghost, nothing but air, a mist passing through the night.
Yeah,
he calls him the Silver Mist.
That's when he gets his name, the Silver Mist.
Yeah, and he gives him a suit. The design is pretty cool. I kind of like the suit. It's designed to help him, I think, manage that power. He says, but there is one most important caveat. If you stop while you're in a solid object, it can be anything, a wall, a car, a freaking baby carriage, you become part of that object, and, well, you're dead. He says, sounds like a good theory to take you out, to take out on you.
Yeah, I was like, okay, man,
like, yeah, he's really not happy.
Like, don't give away your game plan, bro.
Right. So he wants him to take down Steel Tower. He wants him to retrieve the energy source's secrets from the computer, and then put up the force field and blow the new energy source, because John wants to use this energy source from War World to give free energy to Metropolis, and can't have that. Can't provide people with a necessary service.
You can't be like, hey guys, you know what? I just want to help out.
I know, right? So we get Jay Nakamura working as public relations for Steel and Steelworks. It's really funny. It says, and Jay is just fine, boss, and I've been around supers long enough to know you all need some decent public relations, and that you had none before.
It's true.
This is where we get John talking about the wedding and Lana. Jay says, speaking of relations, Miss Lang's been trying to reach you all day. Something about a florist. He says, I know. I don't know. Those were all definitely words. He says, well, with the corporate launch and the attack and everything, I don't know. I haven't had the brain space for much else. And much else? He says, you absolutely 1000% cannot ever call your fiance much else out loud, right? It felt weird coming out of my mouth. It was a good moment. Nice levity. Then we get Superman and the Super Family showing up. All of them. Yeah. And they're here. They talk about, that John, he's one of the family. They ask him if he finally lost it, kind of the idea of phasing out the supers. And I like that he's like, that's not the case, He's like, everything they can do, everybody they can save, there's still collateral damage with these actions. And he wants to prevent that. He wants to save lives. He wants to save millions, if not billions of dollars in damage and repairs.
Property damage.
Yeah. While he's giving his speech, trying to get everybody to understand where he's coming from and what his goals are, Nat is looking out the window and she sees Silver Mist. She has no idea who it is. It's a guy in a suit, but she sees Silver Mist, we know. As she runs outside, she activates her suit and the automated systems of the building direct her iron to armor it up. Do you require assistance? And she doesn't know yet. So she goes out on her own, and she is attacked from behind because he can come through the wall, and he goes right through her suit, clearly damaging and hurting her, and shutting down her suit.
And Natasha's name is just Steel, too, isn't it? Like
yes. Yes.
We gotta get more creative, people.
Yeah.
He should always be Superboy. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he just needs to be Superboy. Like, I don't care. Because calling him a Superman, too, like, it gets confusing.
Yeah. The Steelworks mainframe at the end of these books, interesting. The casualty analysis, the damage assessment for some of these things that have happened. I like how the second one in here is Superwoman original. When Lois was a Superwoman and Lana was a Superwoman, I believe.
Yep, back in Rebirth.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a red and blue energy versions of them in Rebirth.
Yep.
And then we got Tracy Corbin here, who's brand new collateral damage in this supervillain fight.
It's definitely very interesting where John's going.
Yeah, and this book being written by Michael Dorn, some parts are a little bit wordy, but other than that, I mean, it's not even complicated. It's not even a complaint. It being kind of wordy because it's written very well and it's interesting story and dialogue.
It's true. All right, last book of the podcast. Now, we got Blood and Steel, issue number 5 of The Adventures of Superman, John Kent, the Injustice Saga. The book opens with just basically Batman recapping to John what had happened about Clark killing Lois and their child. And John gives a speech about how he doesn't lose his world, it's still here, as he's faced terrible and tragedy, I feel for him, but none of that is an excuse for what he's done. And then everyone just kind of stares at him and they're like, what? Do I sound like him before what happened? And they say, Catwoman says, no, you sound like Lois. It says, Clark fought for truth. Lois lived it. And then Harley apologizes to John for basically murdering him. And he's like, the baby may not have been me. I don't know who would have been on your universe. And, basically gives her a speech. Then we have Superman, Injustice Superman, with Damian, who have kidnapped Jay Nakamura. And Superman's kind of getting angry at Damian for what he did. And he put a tracer on John. And they find that John's out way past somewhere where he shouldn't be. But there's nothing out there. And they're like, exactly, because he's with Batman and the Insurgency. And we're going to find him. And John basically decides to team up with the Insurgency to try to stop Superman. They talk about having those super pills. And John leaves. And then basically an hour after he leaves, Superman and Cyborg, Yellow Lantern, Hal, Wonder Woman, and Hawkgirl show up. Batman, I don't know why. Okay, this panel bothered me because Batman says, the pills, take the... And then Superman heat blasts them. Why would he say that out loud?
Yeah, and I think that they're the Insurgency. They're Batman's people. Like, if there are pills to be had, they all have them on their belt.
Yeah, so I'm saying, why would he yell it out loud? Like,
yeah, that's a little bit of a plot armor here to have Batman and his people be captured.
Makes you kind of wonder if, because so I'll get to it in a second, but they take out everybody. I almost thought Wonder Woman killed Selena, the way she backhands her, and then the Flash takes Batman's belt, which I thought was interesting. John visits the fortress.
Which I thought Batman would have had a redundancy that his belt couldn't get taken off even by somebody like the Flash.
This Batman's slipping.
Yeah.
John visits the fortress in solitude to play a message from his mom that he had. And then while he's there, he runs into Jonathan and Martha. And they have a very interesting conversation. He says, hi, I'm John. He says, good name. And he goes, I was named after you. Well, I was named after my grandfather. And then Martha's like, so you are their son. Are you who we lost? He says, I'm the son of Lois and Clark, but I don't know who would have been born in this universe. And he talks to how they're basically locked up. And how their son has lost his way. And then we see Superman come on and basically say, citizens of Earth, I have pleased to announce the terrorist known as Batman has been captured along with his insurgents. Tomorrow morning, Barbara Gordon and Selena Kyle will be imprisoned for their part in the insurgency that threatened the whole world. Bruce Wayne and Harley Quinn will be executed for their many crimes against humanity. And they're basically saying, John will stop you. And then at the very end, Superman grabs Harley's face.
Yeah, I like it. He says, John will stop you. He says, he won't. He will, because he's Superman, and that still means something to him. Your son, your own son, with all your morals, took less than 48 hours to decide to stand against you. Harley says, maybe you could take something away from that. That's when Clark grabs her face. I was actually surprised that that kind of happened. I almost thought he was going to kill her. But
yep.
He did kind of keep that restraint here at the very end.
I thought he was about to crush her face.
Yeah. Says you after everything you've done, you think you get to advise, to analyze, to even speak in my presence. After tomorrow, you will never open your damn mouth again.
And I'm just like, dang. But my thing was, how did Batman not know there was a tracer on John?
Yeah. I would have assumed that he would have picked up that signal somehow.
Yep. So
There's a little bit of plot armor in this, like, to kind of get the pieces where he wants them, because we know that injustice continues. At least, I mean, I'm curious as to how this story is going to end and if it's going to change anything.
Yeah, that's kind of where, like, we've both been talking about where it takes place in the whole Injustice canon. Like,
yeah, because Damien's still very much wearing, like, it doesn't quite appear like he's wearing the Nightwing getup. He's still wearing a Robin-like costume. I don't think this is later on in the story where he's, 5 years older and dressing as Nightwing.
I mean, it does say at the beginning, it does state 5 years ago when they're telling John what happened. So we will see.
So, yeah. I mean, so if we were speculating on when it could be, this could be, because Batman says he never thought about branching out to the multiverse to get somebody to be able to stop Clark, which is the idea from the book. So, like, this story is like that last story that gives Bruce the idea to bring over the Justice League from Earth Zero to his Earth to stop Superman. Is kind of what it seems. So if that's the case, then this could be like late year 4, early year 5, like sometime around, it'd probably be later year 5, and maybe just before Damien kind of takes on the Nightwing moniker. Maybe he takes on the Nightwing moniker here after speaking with John. Maybe it's kind of him honoring Dick after everything that happens with John in this story. Perhaps that could be an interesting little bit of John having an effect on the people around him.
It would be great, and that means I hope that when they do Injustice 3, the game, they make John Kent a character.
Ooh, that would be so cool.
Because Solomon asked me about who I thought would be in Injustice 3, and I was like, I don't know.
That would be so cool.
Because he was like, Beast Boy, and I'm like, well, that would be cool.
Well, Superman does get imprisoned again, I believe, at the end of Injustice 2. In the canon ending.
I need to look at the comics and like the game timeline again, because I just can't remember all of it. But all right, that about wraps it up here. James, any final thoughts?
Well, kind of issue 6 is typically the last issue in most stories these days. They can run longer, which is fine, 7 or 8 issues. But it kind of seems like the next issue is kind of going to be our wrap up. And I'm very much looking forward to that. I've been a big fan of just about everything Tom Taylor has done with John Kent since he began with him. And I'm looking forward to continuing.
All right, well, stick around for more to come. We're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Chase Smith here from the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast.
And I'm JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network, and we are super excited to bring you a brand new show starting next Tuesday, the Fanfare Podcast.
The Fanfare Podcast is all about your favorite movies and our favorite movies and the best moments in cinema. To help guide our discussion, each episode will feature one classic, and we will grade this movie using a report card-like scale A through F. We're going to be grading categories like acting, directing, cinematography, the score, and even the movie poster itself.
And when we're not featuring a movie report card, we'll be sharing our movie rankings, franchise deep dives, actor and director interviews, and everything in between. Movies have been a major part of our lives, and we cannot wait to share our thoughts with you.
Our premiere episode will drop Tuesday, June 27th, and JD and I will be reviewing Raiders of the Lost Ark in preparation of the release of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on June 30th, the 5th installment of the franchise.
Join us on the Fanfare Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
Before we start this episode of Krypton Report, I want to take a moment and just give a shout out here to our Patreon. I know what you're thinking. Gosh, everyone's asking for money, and I get it. But our Patreon is only $1. $1 a month that helps us keep the podcast going. And what we do is we try to find interesting shows and topics and whatever we want to talk about. We've done, as of this little thing, our last recordings were on the Scream series. Brian and Tyler, that's me, do our own show where we record in the car, and it's kind of funny. And we talk about pop culture or whatever is going on. We also have the Supernatural podcast we've been reworking. It's taken some time just because of life. But we do movie commentaries as well. It's something that James and I have done, what we used to do on the main show that we've started doing here. So for $1 a month on our Patreon, you can get those shows. There's at least 4 a month. Also, there's my movie pitch show that I do. But also, what we want is if you're a Patreon, you can come on. You can come on the main show if you want. Or if there's something you want to come on and talk about, we can do it as a Patreon special. So all I want is for $1 a month, think about chipping in, joining our Patreon, and you have a voice to be part of things. Follow the link in the link tree or in the show notes below, patreon.com/KryptonReport.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.
Welcome to this special backup. That's kind of what I'm calling it. It's a little special extra bonus thing where I look into a certain character. And this character I've wanted to talk about for a while. This character I think has a really unique, almost meta-reference commentary to it. And I wanted to dive into the idea of who is Superboy Prime. So that's what we're talking about, Superboy Prime. We're excluding the conversation on anything like the Superman Prime, being that it's different, but this character and a brief history. Now, Superboy Prime, also simply Prime, which I think is weird, but Superboy Prime is a DC Comics superhero turned supervillain and an alternate version of Superman. The character first appeared in DC Comics Presents 87 in November of 1985. It was created by Elliot S. Maggin and Kurt Swan, based upon the original Superboy character by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Superboy Prime is from a parallel Earth called Earth Prime, which is our Earth, honestly. We're devoid of any superheroes or even super humans. There, Superman and other comic superheroes were fictional characters, and they are like they here on our Earth. Fiction. The Earth Prime universe was erased during Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was the April of 85 to 86, and Superboy Prime ended up in a paradise dimension with the original Golden Age Superman, Lex Luthor Jr. of Earth 3, and Lois Lane from the Golden Age Lois Lane. Over time, his convictions and morals became twisted and warped, and he came to believe that Earth Prime was the only proper Earth, and that Superboy Prime was the only one worthy of the Superboy mantle. Prime firmly believes that Superman is his calling, despite the fact that he has become a psychotic, murderous, and even sadistic villain. His overwhelming strength, speed, and unpredictability and ruthlessness makes him one of the most dangerous foes in the DC universe. So that's kind of a quick backstory. So let's get into some more. Oh, hey, look who just walked down the stairs.
Hi guys, it's me, Solomon. I think you remember me. Yeah, you guys definitely remember me.
Definitely not Superboy Prime, just Superboy. So don't kill anybody.
I'm not going to. Superboy Prime's a hero.
Ah, that's what we're talking about today. So, on Crisis on Infinite Earth, Superboy, like we said, is from Prime Earth. And what happens, basically, is Clark Kent is a young man, and on Halloween, he dresses up as Superman. And the kids are walking through. Alright, so let's back up a quick sec. Superboy Prime is from Prime Earth, in which the DC characters are fictional. He is adopted son of Jerry and Naomi Kent. Naomi wanted to name their infant son Clark after her maiden name, but Jerry, knowing he will also be named like Superman, a fictional comic book character, initially refused but finally gave in. What the Kents do not know is that the baby found abandoned in a forest is actually a young Kal-El who has been teleported to Earth by his father Jor-El moments before the planet Krypton was destroyed when its red sun went supernova. His parents were unable to escape that way due to a member of the Kryptonian Council bursting into the room and using the device, although it is unknown what happened to him. Young Clark lives the first 15 years of his life as a normal boy. However, on Halloween, that great holiday that we all know, dressed in a Superboy costume, which technically would be a Superman costume, just he's a teenager, so I guess he's a boy. The passage of Halley's Comet overheated triggers his Kryptonian powers. At the same time, the Earth 1 Superman finds his way to Earth Prime, which is the Golden Age Superman, right? And the two Supermen meet. Superboy Prime uses his powers to stop a tidal wave. Later, Superboy Prime is drawn into the Crisis on Infinite Earths after his universe is consumed in the light of the Anti-Monitor. Although the loss of everything he knows causes him anguish, he finds peace, knowing that he fights for good. He fights alongside the other heroes. During the final battle against the Anti-Monitor, Kal-El, dash just the letter L, the Earth 2 Superman. So what's so fascinating is after he does this, he ends up in that, like I said, that paradise dimension with Alexander Luthor Jr. of Earth 3 and Kal-El with his wife Lois Lane. In that dimension, Superboy Prime secludes himself from the others using crystals to replay events from his life on Earth. Superboy Prime becomes frustrated, angry, and tries to reach out to Kal-El, who his attention on focused on Lois's failing health, which that quite doesn't make sense. Alexander comes to believe that the reason behind Lois's failing health is Paradise Dimension itself. He persuades Superboy Prime to help him return to reality by showing Superboy Prime the negative effects of post-crisis. And then Superboy Prime hesitates until he hears Kal-El say, "I wish the world would let him grow up. He'll never be Superman here." Finally, Alexander shows him the death of his parents and girlfriends in a car accident in post-crisis Earth. Furious, Superboy Prime pounded on the barrier of reality. This assault caused ripples that overlap parallel timelines / hypertime, which was used as an explanation for character changes, errors, retcons, and DC's continuity. These changes included some of the Donna Troy's multiple origins after her first crisis, the Doom Patrol's rebooting as a new characters, including Elastigirl, various incarnations of Hawkman, the different incarnations of the Legion of Superheroes since the first crisis, the post-crisis retcon of Jason Todd's origin of his resurrection, Superman's multiple origins, including Man of Steel and Superman Birthright combining. Seems like a very weird way to retcon things. But we're getting to what makes Superboy Prime so interesting. We have what's called the Countdown to Infinite Crisis. Eventually, Alexander Luthor reveals to Superboy Prime that his powers are returning. The two combine forces to break through the barrier wall together. They set in the motions that accumulate in Infinite Crisis. Alexander takes control of Batman's Brother Eye satellite, which allows him to control OMAC. After rearranging countless other planets, Superboy Prime pushes the planet Rann into Thanagar's orbit, destroying Thanagar's ecosystem, sparking the Rann-Thanagarian War. His efforts shift to the center of the universe from Oa. Alexander poses as Lex Luthor and forms a new secret society of supervillains, using them to kidnap various people from the former Earth to use as beacons to bring back other worlds. Alexander recreates the Psycho Pirate to place Eclipso's Black Diamond in Jean Loring's cell at Arkham Asylum, as Eclipso, Loring seduces the Spectre and convinces him to destroy all magic. His actions create a raw form of magic that Alexander uses to power his tuning fork device, the Multiverse Tower. Superboy Prime destroys the JLA Watchtower and abducts Martian Manhunter. The Superman of Earth 2 breaks open a portal to the DC Universe, and the 4 residents of the Paradise Dimension return, making themselves known to Power Girl and Batman. When introduced to Power Girl, he calls himself Superboy Prime for the first time. Kal-El tells Power Girl, when the universe was reborn, Earth 1 became the primary world. The scrapes of the remaining worlds were folded into it, but I finally realized we saved the wrong Earth. Superboy Prime is jealous of Connor Kent. Wonder why. The modern Superboy. But it's weird because it's not even really him. Right? Superboy believing him to be living the life that he ought to have had, which is weird because he's Clark, not a different person. Like, if anything, he's mad. But the big clincher is he also believes the Earth's heroes act more like villains. Every hero is more anti-hero. So if you're looking at this from a writing perspective, we're in the aughts, looking back at the 90s, and we're using Superboy Prime kind of as this meta commentary on comics of how everything got darker in the 90s and grittier and harsher from the 80s into the 90s, and how the hopeful aspect is not there. And in a way, we've kind of, corrupted all of that. We corrupted the beautiful, blissful, what should have been beautiful, what should have been blissful, what should have been something it's just not. And that's what Superboy's kind of, pointing out here. Superboy Prime is the Superboy that Earth needs, and he brutally attacks Connor, but not before Connor activates his Titan's homing signal. The Teen Titans, the Doom Patrol, and the Justice Society arrive to help Connor. After accidentally killing Panther with a deadly punch, Superboy Prime is left shocked and horrified while the heroes try to contain Superboy Prime, who kills Wildebeest and Bushido. Left with no other options, Jay Garrick, Wally West, and Bart Allen drive Superboy Prime into the Speed Force and banish him to a parallel world and imprison him in a facility bathed in artificial red sunlight where he remains for 4 years. Hours later, an older Bart Allen, dressed in his grandfather's costume, emerges from the Speed Force and tells the heroine, Dr. Light, to warn the other heroes that Superboy Prime has escaped. During a battle between Alexander Luthor, the heroes freed from his tower, Superboy Prime appears wearing a power suit modeled after the Anti-Monitor's armor, which is the most famous look of Superboy Prime, which constantly feeds him yellow solar energy and boosts his power levels. Adam discovers that magic has very interesting how powerful Superboy Prime has become out of anger and the suit and just the mental where he is. Excuse me. Superboy Prime knocks out Adam away from the tower, and his opponent is transported to Earth S. Superboy Prime insists that Luthor reinstate Earth Prime as the only existing Earth. After Superboy Prime attempts to kill Wonder Girl Cassie Sandsmark, an enraged Connor Kent attacks him. Connor and Superboy Prime battle, which sends them both heading into Alexander Luthor's vibrational tuning fork, with the effects causing the machine to explode, resulting in an alternate Earth merging into one. Connor dies from the injuries sustained from the explosion, leaving the rest of the superheroes devastated. Alexander and Superboy Prime join the Battle of Metropolis and quarrel about their contingency plan. Since their tower has been destroyed, Alexander's prepped to settle for taking over New Earth instead of creating a perfect Earth. Upon hearing of the new plan, Superboy Prime refuses to help him, as he believes New Earth to be hopelessly inferior. I think what's interesting as we look at this is that Superboy Prime represents someone with good intentions being misguided and ends up, like Harvey Dent said, you die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And that's what Superboy Prime is. And we also have to take into effect the trauma that he has infected or hasn't had infected upon him by being young, naive, never really having his own adventures or anything on his own until Crisis, and then seeing and feeling like everything he fought for was lost, and those who are left behind aren't worthy. Something to think about. When Batman, Wonder Woman, Kal-El, and Kal-El arrive to save Metropolis, Kal-El confronts Alex about his role in the destruction. Meanwhile, Superboy Prime is attacked by Bart Allen, who has been left outraged by Connor's death. Superboy Prime escapes Bart and flies towards the planet Oa, intending to destroy it and spark another Big Bang, which would recreate the universe with himself as the sole hero. Although the majority of Earth's heroes are in pursuit, Superboy Prime eludes capture. He is slowed down by a 300-mile thick wall of pure willpower generated by the Green Lantern Corps. Breaking through, he battles 32 Green Lanterns, killing them. The two Supermen arrive and fly Superboy Prime through Rao, the red sun of Krypton. The heat melts away Superboy Prime's armor and severely weakens all three Kryptonians, who then crash on Mogo. Superboy Prime beats Kal-El to death, but it's then attacked by Kal-El's superpower, claims that he is better than Kal-El. This is E.L. Kal, which I'll just call Superman. That is, his Kryptonian was superior to Superman's. Superman responds, "It's not about where you were born, or what powers you have, or what you wear on your chest. It's about what you do. It's about action." Where else do we hear that quote quite often? Although nearly powerless, Kal-El, Superman, knocks Superboy Prime out before collapsing himself, but members of the Green Lantern Corps manage to save him. Prime is taken into custody of the Guardians of the Universe, who place him in a quantum containment field surrounded by a red Sun Eater and guarded by 50 Green Lanterns. While inside his cell, he carves the Superman symbol into his chest, vowing to escape. For a short period of time, Superboy Prime was in the Sinestro Corps. I'll just say that. I'm not going to dig all into that right now. It feels like for another day. But basically, at the end of the battle, he is infected with an Owen energy and warped back into the multiverse. In Countdown to Final Crisis, following the conclusion of Sinestro War, Prime is shown wearing a costume similar to his black suit worn by Superman shortly after his resurrection, and has discovered that the existence of the new multiverse. Traversing it in the hopes of finding Earth Prime, he arrives on Earth 15 and attacks that world's Lex Luthor, blaming him for Alexander Luthor's failure to make the universe perfect. He promptly kills the world's heroes and destroys the planet. He then flies to the new base of operations in the Source Wall, where he had been torturing Mr. Mxyzptlk into helping him recreate Earth Prime. It is revealed that Superman Prime is 19 years old, according to Mr. Mxyzptlk. His growth and his temper, side effects of his cell absorbing vast Owen energy from his last encounter. Mr. Mix escapes with the help of another prisoner, an alternate version of Zatanna from Earth 3. She is killed when Superboy Prime grows angry and gives up on using magic to achieve his goals. So we learn he's never going to give up. Now, I find that the history of Superboy Prime is very interesting as he goes on these other quests. There's, he appears again in Jeff Johns' Superman and the Legion of Superheroes storyline and Time Trappers, where he pretends to be the Time Trapper. And that's in Final Crisis, Legion number 3. I feel all that is very interesting, but I feel like it's kind of getting away from the core of who the character is, because I feel like what happens later is really fascinating. So stay with me, okay? Got to get my notes going here. So we have Blackest Night, okay? But before that, as the time trapper, he creates a paradox. The paradox created by Prime, attacking himself, returns him to Earth Prime. To his dismay, his girlfriend and family have read Infinite Crisis, Sinestro Corps War, Countdown to Final Crisis, and Legion of Three Worlds, and now are terrified of him. Prime lives in his parents' basement, who support him out of fear of what he might do to them. He spends his day collecting comic books and trolling the DC comic message boards, remarking the DC universe will never be rid of him, that he always survives. Despite the physical depletion of his powers, his eyes begin glowing red again. So once again, Superboy Prime is kind of this pissed off fan. He's the internet trolls that we face. Some might even say he's the Snyder cultist of our time. And that's why I find the character fascinating, is he can be this meta commentary on how we ourselves hate or fight the DC universe. Now, during Blackest Night, Superboy Prime continues to live his secluded life unknowingly but constantly monitored by the Prime Universe Brainiac 5, still compulsively reading every comic book and message board post pertaining to the DC multiverse. The extended cool-off period forced on him has left Clark more regretful, aware of his reputation as a joke character in the eyes of the people of Earth Prime. Upon reading Adventure Comics number 4 and the online solicitation for the 2-part storyline possible dealing with his death, he embarks with his fearful parents on a wild goose chase, hoping to find a comic book store willing to sell him a copy of the 5th issue. However, since the 5th issue is not yet on the shelves, the events unfold exactly as Clark already read them, with Alexander Luthor, multiverse hopping Black Lantern, bestowing to him all of his powers in order to bring him to a higher emotional state. Upon calling forth Superboy's victims, he reveals to him his impending death in Adventure Comics number 5. Unable to damage the Black Lantern, Superboy Prime flies to the DC Comics building in New York and attempts to take revenge on the writers he believes made him the way he is. Before he can do so, Alexander teleports him into his basement and begins destroying his comic collection. Superboy Prime then accepts the hopelessness of his situation and willingly puts on a black ring, which wills him to die. However, the ring reaction to his mixed emotions switches between the powers of the emotional spectrum, resulting in a mixed light burst that eradicates the Black Lanterns and the ring itself. Lying on the floor, he becomes overcome by the emotions forced by the ring and devastated by that they have turned him into a monster and made it so he cannot ever have a happy ending. Lori enters the basement sporting a broken arm. She confronts Prime, telling him that they heard him, that they sent her to tell him that they are sorry for what they did to him and are going to leave him alone. They, all in question marks, previously mentioned as being the writers at DC Comics, as they embrace a Black Lantern ring is shown on Lori's hand that detects the hope within Prime's heart. Interesting. Okay. Then we get into DC Rebirth. We all know what that is. This is where, in the 2016 DC Rebirth, Dr. Sivana and Mr. Mind head to the Monsterland Dungeon of Eternity to free the Monster Society of Evil. As King Kid fights the Shazam family, Dr. Sivana and Mr. Mind find that Superboy Prime is trapped inside a small prison cell. When he states to Mr. Mind that he can hear what the villain is saying, Superboy Prime even states that he has plans for Billy Batson when he gets out. After Mr. Mind has Dr. Sivana stab his magic eye with a magic dagger, Superboy Prime senses the Monster Society of Evil are being freed, demanding that Mr. Mind release him as well. When Dummy arrives, displeased that he has left behind after swimming all the way to the Dungeon of Eternity, Superboy Prime states to Dummy that he can get him out in exchange for removing the little red sun outside of his prison. Dummy does so and is double-crossed by Prime. Dun dun dun. Superboy Prime then begins his plans to go after Billy Batson. It's very interesting that Jeff Johns would choose Superboy Prime to, be where it is. So it is interesting how We left him in Blackest Night, then had him pretty much absent from the New 52, and then show up here in Rebirth, which was a big deal, in a Shazam book written by Jeff Johns. So Superboy Prime is shown wandering the Monsterlands, asking the readers if they know how to get out. Superboy Prime crashes the fight between the Shazam family and the monsters of evil, using his fist to impale Scapegoat. Shazam punches Mr. Mind's talk box enough to emit magical energy that knocks out the monster Society of Evil, which Superboy Prime also feels. When Shazam starts to work to undo Mr. Mind's spell, Superboy Prime interferes and defeats the Shazam family until only Shazam / Billy remains standing. Free of the spell that affected him, Black Adam joins the fight and asks for Shazam to cast the spell while he buys him some time, as magic can still hurt Superboy Prime. Both Shazam and Black Adam shout Shazam, causing lightning to strike to knock out Superboy Prime. Prime is handed over to the Justice League as the Shazam family don't know what else to do with him. Now, the last thing that we know about Superboy Prime and what he's done is in Dark Knight's Death Metal. In the pages of Dark Knight Death Metal, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman travel back to the time of the three great crises to stop Perpetua's attempt to manipulate those events. Wonder Woman encounters a victorious Superboy Prime in an alternate version of Infinite Crisis. He taunts Wonder Woman with Perpetua has already changed the outcome of these events. Prime has created his perfect universe based on the comic books of his youth, which are the Golden Age, reasoning that it is the only way to preserve good in Perpetua's new multiverse. Notably, he has created a Superman to protect his world rather than act as Superman himself. Although the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid nearly unmake Batman and Superman in other crises, Wonder Woman is able to talk with Superboy Prime about his resentment of the heroes for becoming darker than he remembers from his childhood, imploring him to accept that change is constant and that in the end there's room for all universes. Superboy Prime shatters the crisis worlds, saving Batman and Superman in the process, and directs all energy to Wally West. His change proves apparently pointless, and the Dark Knight's metal had already rigged the Mobius chair so it would always direct the power to himself, allowing him to remake the multiverse in his own image. Prime awaits the final battle with the Darkest Knight's last 52, multiverse along the other heroes and villains. He stands alone on the battlefield, rejected by the Superman family and their Rose Gallery, and reflects on his life and those and the loss of everyone and everything he cared about, and how he was never able to be a hero. Desperate and nihilistic after the multiple cosmic reboots and retcons he has witnessed, he hurls himself into the fight with an army of alternate Supermen. As he strikes one, he has a vision of the Superman's world changing to reflect Superboy Prime's own desires. Realizing that he is able to tap into the Darkest Knight's energy and once again possesses the ability to reshape reality with his blows, he flies away from the battle to confront the Darkest Knight. He proves equal to the Darkest Knight despite the other's immense powers. Superboy Prime plans to steal the Darkest Knight's power, destroying what remains of... And if you don't remember, the Darkest Knight is basically a Batman who lasts and what eventually becomes of him. Reality and the people who hate him, and he creates his own perfect world. However, the arrival of Krypto, the only one who showed him any kindness, causes him to stay his hand. The Darkest Knight offers him a world of his own, where he can be the beloved and accepted hero he has always wanted to be alongside the characters he loved as a child. If he joins the Darkest Knight's forces, Prime rejects him and strikes the Darkest Knight with all his power, creating a massive explosion, killing him and injuring the Darkest Knight. He falls from the sky, dead, as some of the last 52 worlds vanish. His sacrifice, unnoticed by anyone but Krypto. Clark suddenly finds himself in his bedroom, reading Dark Knight's Death Metal Secret Origin #1, looking at his own dead body on the page. Lori arrives to ask him out to lunch. As they walk down the street, Clark realizes that although the world has changed from what he remembers, he knows he is really home. A child chases a ball into the street, into the path of a car, where Clark runs in after him and lifts the car above his head. And that is the arc of Superboy Prime. I highlighted certain stories because I feel like those are the core stories that really tell you who the character is. And that's his art. The 2 Crisis, and I think you could almost skip the Shazam part, because like he came back to do just a little bit to remind us, but you definitely have to have the Dark Knight's Metal. It's almost like a really nice 3-act structure of what this person did and the redemption of Superboy Prime, and I find it fascinating just to use him as a commentary on the world we live in and the comics culture. I think it's a very thin line to walk between hero and villain, and where Superboy Prime really stands as this twisted, almost version of the old Superboy that we no longer acknowledge. But that's a kind of a quick discussion of the character. I had hoped to have been joined by a fellow co-host, but life. So remember, everybody.
Look up in the sky.
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network. Information $1 a month. You'll get extra special content that you don't get on the main show, like movie commentaries and whatever else comes out of our mouths. So check it out, patreon.com/Krypton.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, the Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope.
Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our information.